such a good lead song for this show. It's what's going on. If you can kind of identify the music and the sounds of what's going on. And I want to welcome everyone to the Voices of Change, and thanks for tuning into the house that Earl built, Intellectual Radio. We have a new time, a new day, and I'm glad you decided to stop by our way. Our show will air on Saturdays at 12 noon, and I'm Janice, and I'll be your host. For today's Welcome Back show, we're going to discuss news, politics, and a little entertainment news with a little twist. Today's show is live in the studio, and I'll let you know if I'm going to open the phones up depending on time. I don't know how my time's going to go today, but if time permits, I will open up the phone lines. I always start off with a scripture for today. It's from Philippians 4:6, and it goes, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayers and supplication with thanksgiving, let your request be made." Now I'm going to start out with the news you can use. We're going to have a pretty robust news you can use, and after that we'll have a quick break and then go right into some things that are happening on the political scene. George Miller, the former CEO of Laredo Hospital, has been indicted in an ongoing federal investigation alleging he and other hospital executives engaged in an embezzlement scheme that took place during the COVID-19 pandemic. Miller joins former Laredo CFO Anash Ahmed, Samir Suhal, the owner of the medical supply company, and Heather Bergdahl, Laredo's former chief transformation officer. They were all indicted earlier this year on fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering counts. Today's superseding indictment alleges Suhal paid Miller and Ahmed $19 million in funds he received from the hospital between the years of 2018 and 2021, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Northern District of Illinois. The indictment also includes new tax charges against Ahmed, probably for all the money he made, for allegedly underreporting income in his individual tax returns. Today's indictment is the latest chapter in a federal investigation that began after it came to light that Laredo was administering hundreds of COVID vaccinations to people who were ineligible for the vaccine at sites that appeared to have personal ties to hospital executives. The vaccination events took place at Trump Tower, where Ahmed lived, at a Gold Coast watch shop where he was a frequent customer, and at a Gold Coast steakhouse where Ahmed was a regular. The revelations resulted, as most of us remember, in city officials halting Laredo's vaccine supply. Following the scandal, Ahmed was forced to resign from his CFO and Chief Operating Officer positions in 2021. And Miller, who served as CEO for 5 years, left Laredo in April 2022. Now, this next story, everyone's been talking about our Mayor Johnson, going to London, and I saw one of the news reporters ask him if he was going there to see a Bears game, as if he would need to go all the way to London to see a Bears game. But this is some of the outcome of what happened at the meeting day one. A London-based well-being benefits company is opening its U.S. headquarters in Chicago and committing to employing up to 50 people here over the next few years. The InsurTech company, PERC, announced the selection of Chicago today alongside Mayor Brandon Johnson, who is on a trip to London aimed at attracting businesses and tourism to Chicago. The company was founded in 2019. It sells a platform to individuals and employers giving access to health, wealth, and education-related workplace benefits. Everyone knows tomorrow we're gearing up for the Bank of America Chicago Marathon. And while the elite runners line up for the start on Sunday, they will each be carrying a memorial tribute to one of the greatest athletes the sports have ever seen, Kenya's Kelvin Kiptum. I know you guys remember him. He was the young guy who ran that 2.0. He set the world record in Chicago a year ago and came close to breaking the magical 2-hour barrier. He was killed in a car crash in February at the age of 24. Organizers will pay tribute to Kiptum by placing a mark on the bibs of top runners with his name and time. His time was 2 minutes and 35 seconds. His race uniform will also be on display at the Marathon Expo. For all of you runners out there, I know you're getting really excited. I'm gonna check my phone because I'm hoping that someone has sent me a message, or unfortunately right now I can't read it. But I'm gonna look and see if I'm reading any messages. If you have anything to message me, feel free to do so. About 8 months ago, after a black man filed a police brutality lawsuit against an Alabama police department, he was found hanging by a rope. Is this a coincidence? His family doesn't think so. The filing is part of the February civil lawsuit alleging Richardson was subjected to unconstitutional arrest and violence at the hands of the local officers, despite him being disabled. The suit claimed that Richardson was being harassed by the department from November to December of 2022. The suit claims officers viciously beat Richardson, compromised his asthma by spraying mace in his face, and denied him food while he was detained inside a jail cell. Richardson's wife, Leanne, says he was harassed his whole life. By the time he filed the lawsuit, the cops had just arrested him again on drug charges, and Richardson's wife alleged that they offered to drop the charges if he dropped the lawsuit against them. However, his determination for justice may have just been a grisly overshadowing of what would happen later to him. He was let out on probation following the arrest, but decided to turn himself in after learning he would have to serve his time across the country, forcing him to move from his 5 children and his wife. His wife told reporters after he left the house she stopped hearing from him. On September 26, Richardson was reported missing. 2 days later, Richardson was found dead. He was hanging by a rope on the porch of an abandoned home near the Mississippi line, where his family said he had no business being, according to court filing. Richardson's family still haven't received his death certificate. However, the autopsy ordered by the Colbert County District Attorney's Office ruled his death a suicide. Cissy Houston, a 2-time Grammy-winning soul and gospel artist who sang alongside legends like Aretha Franklin and Elvis Presley, has passed away at the age of 91. She died peacefully in her New Jersey home on Monday morning, surrounded by family while under hospice care for Alzheimer's disease, according to her daughter-in-law, who confirmed the news to the media. Cissy's remarkable career spanned more than 70 years, making her a trailblazer in both gospel and popular music. From her early beginning in a gospel group to becoming a member of the renowned Sweet Inspirations, Cissy's influence on the music world was immense. She sang backup for an array of iconic artists including Otis Redding, Lou Rawls, and Dionne Warwick, and contributed vocals to some of the most memorable songs of the era. Despite her success, she remained rooted in her faith and family, performing for years at Newark's New Hope Baptist Church, where her daughter Whitney Houston, first discovered her love of music. Now, this next story happened yesterday, and some of you may have seen it on the news, where there were like so many people jumping on these trains, taking packages. And if you watch the news, they were taking packages and you would see cars parked and they were throwing the packages in the cars. This was so much planted. 6 people were arrested after being part of a mob that burglarized a train on Chicago's west side. The chaos unfolded around 4:45 p.m. Friday near Lake Street and Lockwood Avenue. The train was stopped and awaiting an interchange with a partner railroad when swarms of thieves began opening rail cars, according to Union Pacific. The thieves were seen grabbing boxes from inside the containers and taking them to their vehicles. Some of the merchandise has been recovered since that. Now, how did they know the exact time? How did they know the content? This is all very suspect. Authorities don't know why Mindy Mandela allegedly shot and killed 2 people in a J&J Fish and Chicken on Monday night. It's not even clear if the fast food worker should have had a gun at work at all. The double homicide at the Ashburn restaurant was the latest in a string of recent violent workplace attacks that occurred in the Chicago area earlier this week, involving employees carrying weapons on the job. Just hours after a Bears victory at Soldiers Field last Sunday, a man employed by a company offering food and beverage services at the football stadium allegedly slashed his worker with a knife following a verbal altercation. Earlier that day in Cal City, a Walgreens employer with a concealed carry license allegedly fatally shot a suspected shoplifter who had pulled a gun on the store's workers. Experts on occupational safety say that these recent incidents bring to light the importance of employers taking proactive steps to plan for and prevent workplace violence. It seems like it's trending and increasing, and something should definitely be done about it. On the business front, Boeing will reduce the size of its total workforce by 10% over the coming months, according to CEO Kelly Ortberg. That amounts to around 17,000 jobs. Ortberg said due to the workplace reductions, Boeing would not proceed with the next cycle of furloughs. This isn't very surprising. Boeing has had a few incidences over the past couple years, with airplanes, with parts, with all kind of things. So this doesn't surprise me at all. It's unfortunate, though, for the 17,000 people, and we don't want to see this trend for other larger companies. The Dow and Standard & Poor 500 notched new highs on Friday, with the broader index closing above 5,800 for the first time as big U.S. banks got earnings seasons underway. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose nearly 1% as J.P. Morgan Chase shares surged. The S&P 500 GSPC gained 0.6%, and the tech-heavy NASDAQ Composite IXIC increased about 0.3%. All three gauges finished the first full trading week of October with weekly wins of more than 1%. Now I want you guys to send me a note, send me something so I can, say hello to you and see how everything's going. And I'm looking for, let me see. Okay, hello Romaine. It's always good to hear from you. And let's see any other comments. Let's see if we have any other comments. Okay, I'm not seeing any other comments at the time. So we're going to take just a real quick break, because the next thing, I only have a couple political stories, but one of them is going to be about the presidential race. So I want you to stay tuned, call a friend, and listen for the next segment, which will be the political front, coming up next on Intellectual Radio, Voices of Change.
Taking a real break.
We don't need to stipulate. There is nothing inside, but only love can conquer hate. We've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Taking lives we can say what's going on. What's going on? What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. Oh, yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What's going on, people? What's going on? Can you hear it? Really kind of break out with the ITL logos all over the place. I hear it now. Now we're going to talk a little political, just a little political, and see what's going on. And on the political front, Ethel Kennedy, the wife of Senator Robert F. Kennedy, who raised their 11 children after he was assassinated in '68, and she remained dedicated to social causes and the family's legacy for decades thereafter. Died on Thursday. Her family said she was 96 years old. Kennedy had been hospitalized after suffering a stroke in her sleep on October 3rd, according to her family. Now out of Washington, and I hope this is at the forefront of everyone's mind, because we only have a couple weeks now before we go to the polls and vote for the candidate of your choice for President of the United States. And this is really important. It's important for all of us to get out there and vote. If polls are any guide, and there are many questions about them, Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump is in better shape now than he was at the time in 2020 and in his winning the White House campaign of 2016. Yes, Trump trails Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris in most polls. But the all-important caveat is that he's down against the incumbent vice president by smaller margins than he faced in his first two general elections, both of which saw him score higher with actual voters than the ones who responded to the pollsters. Certainly, Republicans are counting on what some pollsters have called, and this is important, the hidden Trump effect, the hidden Trump vote. Although pollsters also say there's no certainty that this group exists. During a rally Wednesday in Reading, Pennsylvania, Trump claimed to have a poll showing him up 3 percentage points in the Keystone State, which probably means 10. A lot of people also, this hidden Trump effect, I think this is something that's really real, because a lot of people think that, generally, I'm not going to vocally and outwardly say that I'm voting for Trump, so they pretend like they're not voting for Trump. But when they go in the polls, this hidden Trump effect, they vote for him. That's how he won in 2016. Not that he won the popular vote, he won the electoral vote, but if he's ahead now, if he's further ahead than he was in 2016, Houston, we have a problem. Actor and comedian Eddie Griffin, everybody knows Eddie Griffin, he's funny. He shredded Vice President Kamala Harris as a liar during a podcast declaring he might support former President Trump. Griffin, known for films like Undercover Brother, spoke on his podcast about the two candidates for president, arguing that Trump appears to be the lesser evil compared to Harris. Griffin then offered a humorous argument. Now keep in mind, Griffin is a comedian, so he's going to try to make you laugh. A humorous argument that Trump has certain credentials with the black community, and that this is how he aligned Trump with the black community. He said that he's got 3 baby mamas, 43 felony cases, selling high-top tennis shoes just like Michael Jordan, just got shot like Tupac, and then he said the mofo gonna drop an album next. I know that's Griffin, okay? He goes on to say, I don't know what the blank you're thinking voting for Kamala. He says she's a puppet. She has zero experience and nobody respects her on the world stage. It's kind of unnerving that someone as high profile as Griffin feels like this and openly says it and says it on his podcast, even if some of them are jokes and kikis and ha-has. Still, a lot of people respect and follow him. Rapper 50 Cent says maybe Trump is the answer after seeing New York City give prepaid credit cards to migrants. Charlemagne says Harris needs to answer questions from voters. Black people shouldn't have to just settle. Recently, maybe a couple weeks ago, I remember when Janet Jackson said, well, you know, she's not black, is she? Even though one of her people on her staff kind of, walked that back, she didn't authorize him walking that back. So, I mean, that's the narrative, and it's been out there before, and it is what it is. The former President Barack Obama, himself a black man, urged other men of color to rally in support of the Democratic presidential candidate as he launched into a scathing critique upon hitting the campaign trail in Pittsburgh on Thursday. He made reference to reports claiming that Harris is struggling to mobilize black voters, which the former president says seems to be more pronounced with the brothers, and declared that the demographic isn't okay with the idea of a female president. A recent NAACP poll found 1 in 4 young black men backed Trump heading into the election, 25%. Typically, Democrats have carried a vast majority of black votes, 92% went to Biden. But the news poll shows Trump making inroads with young black voters. And this is of concern, because even black people that are pro-Kamala still have a lot of questions. We have questions on the migrants and how they're utilizing the resources, the scarce resources that we have. Are the resources being taken by other groups? They have questions on, I know she's been, doing the rounds on CNN and everywhere else, and they have questions on her commitment to what she's going to do for black people. And if I'm not mistaken, at one point she said that, well, I'm not going to do anything specifically for black people. I'll be doing it for everyone. So then, the typical black person may feel, this is what they always tell us, and here we are, nothing's being done for us. We have to hold these people who we elect accountable. Me personally, I'm for Kamala, but we have to hold her and whoever else wins accountable. But this election is neck and neck. So the best thing that I can tell you to do is go out there and vote for the candidate that you feel has your best interests and that would represent you the best. Now we're going to talk about a little bit about entertainment news. Now, this is the last segment of the day. So, we're not going to be on that long. We're only going to be on for this last segment. And it's about, it's just a different twist on entertainment. Keep in mind, this is not the views of Intellectual Radio. I just want to say the disclaimer. It's just a different perspective. You got to open up your mind to different things, and then you get all these tools in your toolbox, then you'll make the right decision, or you'll come to the right outcome. Because right now, nobody knows. It's just all these theories running around. Everyone is talking Diddy. Diddy has been doing what he does for a long time. The freak-off parties are well known. But let me look at a different aspect of that. Let's look at Diddy and Ciroc. In June 2023, the rapper filed a complaint alleging Diego, who owns Ciroc and who also owns De Leon, as a black brand that should only be marketed to urban consumers. Diddy had a problem with this because he feels, and he is global, he has a global image, and he wanted his products to be marketed more broadly, more widely, not just to urban consumers. Combs signed with Diego to become the face of Ciroc in 2007, helping to grow the brand sales by over over 3,000% per the complaint. They partnered once again in 2013 to buy, market, and sell that De Leon tequila. So he has two products, the Ciroc and the De Leon. Both of them are owned by Diego. But Combs' team wrote that Diego, the owner, consistently fell short of its commitment in promotion. So if they don't have the promotion, they're not going to maximize their income potential. Therefore, Combs filed a complaint against Diego. Claims of racism. The Grammy winner, since then, has faced 4 sexual assault claims from various accusers. After his 4th accuser, in less than a 3-week span, 3 weeks and everybody, boom, 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 filed suit in New York, he spoke out for the first time to deny the allegations and deny the accusations. It's probably too late then because now everything is out. Now think about the timing of when he was arrested. He was arrested September 16th, which is less than 2 months from the presidential race. And everybody know Diddy stomped for Biden. Diddy stomped for Biden and was poised to stomp for Kamala. In fact, he launched a black political party. Now, think back to Hugh Hefner, who was a king of freak-off parties. He did it 24/7. The Playboy Mansion, that's all he did was the freak-off parties. However, it does appear that Diddy went way over with his physical abuse of women and sexual abuse and grooming of minors. But is there something more sinister going on with the timing of his takedown 2 months before the election when he's trying to build black political strength? Is there something sinister about the suit that Diddy had against Diego claiming racism? That was the start of his demise. Was the timing influenced by the upcoming election? Was his whole takedown started with his lawsuit with Diego? You be the judge. Whitney Houston was another one that they talked about. I don't know if you're familiar or listen to Dr. Umar Johnson. Dr. Umar Johnson is a Pan-African, and he's a black activist. And he often, he has a podcast, of course, and he talks about various topics. So again, some of these are from his podcast. Whitney obviously had a drug problem. We all know she had a drug problem. She was the greatest singer ever. She sold over 220 million CDs, records, whatever they call it. So because of her drug problem, she was going broke, I guess. And what typically do entertainers do when they're going broke? They want an audit, okay? They want to find out. She knows how popular she was. Everyone knows how popular she was. They called her the Voice. The only reason why Mariah Carey exceeded her in CD sales is because, she had to stop going to the studio because of her drug problem, obviously. But she wanted an audit to investigate, to find out if anything was suspicious. She wanted to find out if anybody was ripping her off, which is so typical when you hand over control of your finances to someone else, or if someone else is orchestrating your finances. She also wanted control of some of her catalog. She was found drowned in a tub in a 5-star hotel, a 5-star hotel that would typically have cameras throughout every corridor. How did we find out about Diddy beating his girlfriend? From the cameras. They typically have cameras, but ironically, there was no footage from the time prior to her demise. Michael Jackson, one of my favorites. Michael Jackson owned 50% of Sony. This business partnership began in 1995 and gave him rights to about 3 million songs, including works by the Beatles, Bob Dylan, Taylor Swift. In fact, he was so generous, he returned Little Richard's masters, which was worth $40 million, and he returned them for $0. This man had power. After being in court and leaving the U.S. for a while and the label not promoting his CD, he of course owed money. So the powers that be said, well, look, you basically own Sony. We can just make a deal. Michael didn't want to do that. He was adamant about not doing that and passing on that generational wealth. So he decided to do a tour. This is it. To settle his bills. Well, we all know what happened after This Is It. He was obviously worth more unalived than alive. He certainly was, because after his demise, Sony once again bought their share back from his family after he died. Tupac, thought this was interesting. Tupac was under surveillance for 2 weeks prior to his death. He was politicizing gangs, the Crips and the Bloods. He was politicizing and funding them. He was a black activist also. He was definitely pro-black, and as they would say now, he was woke. Tupac had the following, he had the influence, he had the popularity, and the money to fund and influence a movement. He didn't get the chance to do that. Prince. When it came to ownership and control over his music, Prince waged a career-long battle against any company that he felt stood in the way of artists' rights. Warner Brother, after years of battle, I mean, everybody remember the battle with Warner Brother and Prince, and they battled for years, but Warner Brother finally promised Prince his masters 2 years before his death. But they had a stipulation. The stipulation was he had to give permission to reauthorize the Purple Rain CD. Well, Prince wanted his masters. He'd been fighting forever for that. But he began to get suspicious and was about to pull out the deal. What happened to him? Everybody knows what happened to him on the elevator. The irony of that, not only his music, his unreleased music, he had so much unreleased music. He has enough music that's unreleased to release a CD every year for the next 100 years. Imagine when they get their hands on that. And I'm sure Sony's probably went to the family or whoever's over his estate, and it probably happened. Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke sang the songs that brought relief to the civil rights movement, and like many during his time, Aretha and all the rest of them, he helped fund the music. He sang the songs that healed. His songs brought people to their knees and lifted them to their feet. You know, that gospel background, it just goes into play. Then at the height of his success, he was suspiciously shot and killed. It was 1964 and he was 32. Sam Cooke owned his own music. He owned his own music. So he owned his own music. That was powerful right there. And he was a friend of Malcolm X and Dr. King, both of them together. Matter of fact, he was talking to both of them and wanted them to collaborate and start a new civil rights movement, and was an advocate and said he would finance and fund this new civil rights movement. He was killed a few weeks before his friend Malcolm X and was never able to realize that collaboration. Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix's manager was an undercover British MI6 agent. Hendrix wanted to finance the Black Panther Party. See, back then, back in the day, in the 60s, 70s, or whatever, when people had influence and they had money, they always wanted to give back to the community. Many of them were activists. He wanted to finance the Black Panther Party. If you remember, when you think of the Black Panther Party, some people think of something negative, but they were doing a lot of positive things. Head Start, they were doing a lot of positive things. His manager at that time forbade him to do that and said, no, you can't use the money to fund them. Well, Hendrix later found out that he was being robbed by the same manager and decided to separate, to leave him. Hendrix, who also had a drug problem, was found in the bathtub unalived. Again, none of these stories are the views of Intellectual Radio, just a different perspective, just something for you to think about and ponder. But while you're pondering, don't revel in it. Because many times when we see people or we hear about people being taken down, it's like, yeah, they had all that money and now look at them. Ha, 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 ha. Well, the Bible talks about that in Proverbs 24:17. It says, do not rejoice when your enemy fails, and let not your heart be glad when he stumbles. And that makes so much sense. Because when you do rejoice when your enemy fails, and when you do be glad when they stumble, it opened up the door for the same thing to happen to you. That's my show today on the Voices of Change on Intellectual Radio. It has been a pleasure talking to you, and I just cannot wait. Hey, Carol Johnson. And I cannot wait until I open up the lines and we can talk and we can chat and we can have discussions. We will be back next week, next Saturday at our new time, 12 noon. So tune in and tell a friend and have a blessed week. Signing off.